Hello and welcome to today's edition of Market Talk. We're delighted to be joined by John Davies, who's Managing Director of Levy UK, one of the UK's biggest event caterers and part of the Compass Group. We're also joined by Paula Sherlock, Managing Director of Signature Foodservice Equipment, leading supplier of front of house and back of house solutions for the catering industry. Good morning to you both. Nice to see you.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us this week. John, we'll start with you. The business that you run is heavily entrenched in the events and stadium catering side of the market, and that's looking like it's going to be one of the very last to come out of this situation, this lockdown. Can you describe what the last few months have been like for you, and sort of where you sit at the moment, really?
Yeah, sure. I mean, clearly it's been an extremely challenging period, and I think back to the last major event we did was back in March at Cheltenham Festival. We'd had a really busy period. Back end of the Six Nations, we do the catering at Twickenham Stadium, as well as Principality and Aviva Stadium over in Dublin. So we were really busy over the Six Nations. Went into Cheltenham Festival, and then everything stopped. And obviously, it was shell shock to everyone, as it was right across the UK in whatever industry we were in. So it was a period of just trying to adjust and understand really what was going on. The primary focus was definitely on our people and how to support them as best we could at the time. Pre the furlough scheme, we had about 1,000 different ways we thought we could try and support our staff and get through it. The furlough scheme then obviously came on board, which was fantastic to enable us to get some breathing space and just understand how we could try and get through it. But clearly, major events with full attendance are still a long way off. So we are having to plan a build back very slowly and carefully.
Sure. I think when we approached you a couple of weeks back about coming on to this show, at that point there hadn't been the kind of the rule of six introduction, for example, and I think there were high hopes at that point that there will be fans back into stadiums the beginning of October. Since that period, would you say there's been a bit of a setback in terms of that plan?
To be honest, Andrew, it's been a roller coaster for the last couple of months. We were very, we go through really positive periods, and then we're right back down in the doldrums. We were very positive, I think back to July, where we'd had a couple of test events at the Oval and at Edgbaston, both those grounds that we cater at. And we were planning that weekend to go into a test event at Goodwood, where we had 5,000 members planned, and it was all done very safely, securely. We had a venue within a venue approach, so everyone was going to be safe and secure, their own facilities within their own, area, if you like. And that got pulled literally 24 hours before the event went ahead, which was really, a bitter pill for the team who had spent 2 weeks, night and day organising that, as well as the Goodwood team. It was hugely, dispiriting. And then we went through a period, and 2 weeks later, pilot events were back on. It started to feel positive again. A couple of events went ahead. Again, we had another event at the Oval. We had a successful event at Harlequins only a couple of weeks ago, and a series of events were planned, for the rest of the month. And October 1st was the deadline we were all working to. And then obviously the R rate sneaking up, local lockdowns, the government getting, I think, a lot more nervous about infection rates. We're sort of back to, it feels like we've taken another 2 steps backwards, I'll be honest. Events can still go ahead that have been pre-authorised, but to a capacity of only 1,000 people. And being absolutely honest, there's not a lot we're going to learn from doing more test events at 1,000 capacity in these huge spaces that can hold 20, 30, 40,000 people.
Oof, yeah, it's a tough time. Paula, just bringing you into the conversation then, is the events and stadia sector something that Signature supplies regularly? Have you seen movement in that area yourself?
Yeah, I mean, it's historically something that an area that we do supply, because obviously the nature of some of our brands and products means that they're very flexible and great for use in stadia, because they are portable, movable, very flexible pieces of equipment, like cooking table, for example, and Venta are both a buffet system and a live cooking system, which can be moved around stadiums and can, you know, cope with different numbers very, very well. And that flexibility, I think, is really important moving forward, because as John just said, you know, we don't know the numbers, the operators don't know the numbers moving forward, but they do need flexibility of equipment that can be used, maybe even in areas where traditionally they wouldn't have necessarily done a food service setup. We're seeing terraced areas, for example, because obviously being outside, whether we can, obviously not necessarily the season moving forward, but certainly the use of equipment outside is one area which we can help with, and that's something that's increasingly a demand, I would say, to help with. So yeah, it's something that historically we've done, and moving forward, I think we need flexible, or operators need flexible equipment to help them with those different areas.
Mm-hmm. So have you seen kind of any other sectors really sort of picking up the slack now that events are really on a pause at the moment?
I mean, hotels, I think, is probably one of the slowest sectors to reopen. Certainly some of the larger hotels, we're only just seeing them reopening. So that's been a very long period for us. But there's a lot of discussion and a lot of projects that they're looking at for the future, which is positive. So we've been busy actually with, I think perhaps people's minds are opened up to different ideas and maybe looking at different ways of food service. And so we've been busy talking to operators about those types of products, even if those projects perhaps don't happen until next year or even later, which is quite normal in a project type of sale.
And Paula, did you get a sense that the market is beginning to pick up a bit since the Eat Out scheme was introduced? You've seen a bit more activity.
Yes, certainly. When I talk to our distributor channel, they've experienced an upsurge of sales in that period, definitely. And interesting, when I talk to them, they're also saying that that's actually a different market. For example, a central London-based distributor, where they've got operators that are just still closed because people are not back in their offices or workplaces at the moment. What they're finding is people have been eating out more often, but maybe in a more suburb, more extended area around London, for example. And so they've seen an uptake in sales because of that. And I think moving forward, obviously what we're waiting for is to see the impact of people back to their workplaces.
Yeah, sure. John, just to bring the conversation back to yourself, you mentioned earlier about your involvement in the pilots that have taken place, particularly in the cricket stadiums. What kind of lessons did you learn from those pilots from a catering perspective, and were there any surprises from that test?
Yeah, I think the first thing to consider is that we were bringing people back to work where they hadn't been at an event or worked at an event for many months. So a little bit ring rusty, to be honest. So we had to be really careful about getting people back in a safe way. Treat our people very, very safely and securely. So there were staggered staff check-ins. We were giving them welcome packs. We were doing temperature checks and health questionnaires for the staff coming through, and just making sure they're okay. And obviously, there's learning a new way of behaviour, because our staff are a very close-knit community. They haven't seen each other for many months. They wanted to hug, they wanted to get to know each other again and be in close contact. And it's almost saying, look, the new normal is we're just going to have to behave in a different way. And then obviously, wearing face masks behind the counter, behind the service areas, in the kitchen, it does take some getting used to. It can be uncomfortable for those people that are working in hot and busy environments. So, we've been very careful that to be very cognizant that staff are having to learn and react and behave in a very different way. In terms of consumer behaviour and customer behaviour, I mean, we found everyone in all the trials we've been involved in, very, very aware of the rules, happy to be compliant, just really happy and grateful they're at a live sporting event again. So we had no bad behaviour at all. Everyone was really, 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 a joy to be there and work with. In terms of the offer, we just had to simplify the offer a lot. We had to make sure that any food that we were serving was covered, that was safe and secure. That all of the, we try to take as much of the queuing element out of the offer, certainly on the public retail side. So at the event at Harlequins, which was one of the most recent, we had an in-seat ordering out seat serve was the one we trialed. We worked with others as well, and the adoption rate of that was much higher than we'd have seen previously, pre-COVID, because people are then downloading the app. They want to have their drinks and food brought to their seat, and actually the spend levels held up very well compared to pre-COVID. So people want to get out, they want to spend, they want to be at live events. The only caveat I would say is we can't make them too sterile. We can't make them feel like they're in a hospital or in a medical facility. People are still coming out to try and have a good time, to enjoy themselves. And they are, they're going to pubs, they're going to restaurants, they're going onto the high street and having almost a completely different experience than we're now being told in the regulations we have to deliver at major events. And I'd like to see some parity across the whole hospitality industry as to the style of offer that we can deliver.
John, how do you think that your company's kind of hygiene priorities have changed since pre-COVID? Has it been a massive difference, or was that something that you focused on anyway?
Well, I mean, any food service business, health and safety is right at the top of any list. It's right at the top of any agenda of any meeting or staff briefing. So I'd like to think that it hasn't changed as a priority. Obviously, the focus of the style of cleaning and the emphasis of, there's a hell of a lot of new technology, cleaning, the amount of emails I get about different bits of cleaning kit, and then these magic formulas that seem to have come out of the ether, you have to take with a little bit of a pinch of salt. Ultimately, a safe and hygienic kitchen workplace has always been the gold standard. It's just about regular cleaning, making sure you're using the right chemicals, that staff have the correct PPE to use, and you take it forward from there. Ultimately, the coronavirus it's the same as any other virus or bacteria. It will be killed if you're using the right principles going forward. Now, how this then adapts and we go forward and it looks like, I don't think any of us know what potentially this could impact in terms of cleaning principles and practices over the next 6 to 12 months.
Rightio, and Paula, on the same lines, how have the products that Signature imports to the UK, how have they kind of tried to help with the hygiene considerations that are obviously at the forefront of lots of operators' minds right now?
Yeah, I think the materials that are used within the products are really important. The use of stainless steel is obviously widespread throughout our industry, but there's a reason for that, and because of its hygiene qualities. And so what they've done is they've actually enhanced some of the things that perhaps we've already had within the product ranges. For example, within Live Cooking Table, they have an air wall, which obviously is a mobile extraction system, but it also helps with microbiological load within a room. So actually you can see how things can become even more important, not necessarily new products, but they have launched new products, screenage and so forth, which can be fitted to the products. But I think, as John was saying, what you don't want to do, and it's a balance between not making the offer too sterile for the guest, and so still actually having products front of house, cooking front of house, having interaction with a chef is really important, and probably even more so now, because if a guest can see the product being cooked in front of them, all of those questions in their mind about hygiene, they can see with their own eyes. It's just how that's delivered professionally, with the right type of equipment and with the right type of materials within that equipment, so that it can be delivered hygienically. So we're fortunate in that the brands already had those qualities, if you like. They've just enhanced those by adding some additions that we think that are going to be important moving forward for operators. But it's that balance between not making it too sterile and making it an enjoyable hospitality experience, which is so important.
All of the brands that you work with, I believe, are all based in Europe, all European producers, and obviously at the moment the kind of the Brexit chatter is increasing a lot as we sort of move towards that deadline. What will that mean for you? Will you have to change any of your practices?
Yeah, I mean, all bar one of the brands that we work with are European based. So yes, it has impacts moving forward quite soon, obviously. So we had guidance documents and a webinar that the FEA and Keith Warren and the team at FEA have communicated out to the industry, which has been extremely useful to understand exactly where we stand today and what actions we need to take for January 1st, 2021, and then moving forward. So there's two real things about that. One is about who is the importer of the goods, because distributors become importers come January the 1st, which means that they have a legal responsibility to hold documentation about that product. So gone are the days of the past 40 years of no barriers to trade. There's a legal obligation either from a point of contact in the UK on behalf of the manufacturer, or the distributor becomes the importer. So that's something that is very important to address, because that's something that changes from January the 1st. The other point is obviously about UKCA marking and how that sits alongside CE marking. We're being encouraged to use UKCA marking from next year, even though we have a period of time to implement that, but we're being encouraged to use that. So that has an implication on documentation and the use of that. But then there is also, we're still waiting the outcome of no deal, or hopefully a deal, Brexit, and that will have an implication on that side of things. So there's a lot of work actually to do, and the guidance, as I say, really has been formulated and communicated really well by FEA, and that's something that then I forwarded on and in regular communication with all the brands to make sure that so there's no hiccup to supply come through to January the 1st. So yeah, there's a lot of work to do.
Yeah, sure. Oh, so it sounds like it's all in order, which is good to hear. John, just coming back to you, and again on the business model side, if you look at events and experiences catering, as we move into 2021, do you think the operational model of that kind of catering offer will have to change?
Inevitably, we'll have to adapt and change, because that's the reality that we face at the moment. I think we have to look at a reduced capacity model, certainly for the short term, and what that looks like. Now, our business model splits really into two. You've got public catering feeding, the general admission, which is the majority of fans that come in, but the more high spending element is obviously on the hospitality side. Now, if we can maintain, a reasonable number of people still coming into hospitality, that will still give us good revenue and good income, and crucially for the clubs and our partners, profitability to continue trading, and then deliver a secure general admission public feeding policy. But it will involve more open air spaces, or inevitably going into areas like fan zones. The more you can do open air, the more safe and secure the perception is. And in terms of the style of food that we'll do on hospitality, and it's something that we'll be speaking to, or we are speaking to companies like Paul's about, is how do we do very high premium food, but not in a style that we would have done previously. For example, shared buffets, family service, chef tables, help yourself to an amazing platter of food. All of that's, obviously consigned to the dustbin for now, until we adapt to the new model. But we can create luxury and premium experiences through really high-end bento boxes, through an ability to do an amazing picnic that you can take out into the bowl of the stadium, or on the racecourse side if you're at horse racing. We can still do a la carte fine dining table serve. We just need the modern version of the cloche, if you like. I didn't think in my lifetime we'd see the return of the cloche, but I think I think that we are at the precipice of that. But you can do it in a fun and innovative way. People just want to feel safe and secure, that their food hasn't been contaminated, haven't been sneezed on, for example. So it's just those practicalities of how you serve the food. But in terms of the quality and the core standards, the ingredients, the ethos that we have at Levy, it can all be maintained. We'll just have to adapt the delivery operational model.
Okay.
Yeah, John, do you see that there's any kind of tension in between the additional measures that you're having to put in and sustainability goals? Because there's things like single-use menus and that kind of thing. So what's your opinion on sustainability at the moment?
Well, look, I'm a passionate advocate for sustainability and how we should be doing things differently, and the impact that catering businesses have can be measured, and there's a couple of key things that we can do, whether it's around food waste, whether it's the amount and volume of red meat that we put onto our menus, and then the third point which you mentioned is around sustainability and single-use plastics. Now, with our partners, we come an awful long way in the last couple of years to actually, getting to really good principles of reduce and reuse. That's the two things that we should be focusing on. And within the matter of months, in terms of this crisis, that's all been thrown out the window, and we've gone back 5-10 years, unfortunately. And the single-use plastics, single-use serve is prevalent at the moment, and I think it will be for a short period of time. But crucially, we need to be able to turn that dial very quickly and get back to the principles that we had. On public catering, that was about reusable pint pots, for example, for the beer. They are still perfectly safe. They're not getting washed on the facility. They get taken away and cleanly and hygienically washed in an industrial unit. So there's no reason why we couldn't get back to that in the near future. In the same way, in hospitality, the best way to stay sustainable is to have very good quality, durable CCG. And if you can then reuse that and it's safe and secure and it's being washed in a hygienic fashion and being stored in a hygienic fashion, I think we do need to quite quickly challenge this preconception that everything has to be wrapped in plastic and thrown away immediately, because that we cannot grow the business out of the current crisis with that model. It's crazy.
Yeah, and same on the same thing for you, Paula. How are your products going to help with the sustainability drive, with that tension between the COVID safe requirements?
I mean, we've had new products, for example, from Pinti in Italy, a cutlery manufacturer. They've launched a use and reuse range, which is affordable but stainless steel, so it can be washed and reused. And that's something that is trying to address the balance between, obviously we've got new legislation coming in next year about single-use plastic cutlery, for example. So they've launched a range that is affordable, but is still stainless steel, so that it can be washed and reused. And we've seen restaurant groups sort of taking that up for use in picnic offers or delivery boxes of their menus, for example. And so that, from a light equipment point of view, is important. And then on sort of the cooking equipment, if you like, the use of induction technology is nothing new, but it's so important in terms of energy and sustainability that we use that throughout for both obviously cooking and also for holding. So we've got holding temperature products which are using induction technology, and that gives a lot of sustainability, but it also gives the operator flexibility, because you can hide that induction technology away, and so that you can use that area for different purposes throughout the day. And operators, I think, just need lots of flexibility moving forward, because, as John said at the start, it's been a roller coaster. None of us know what the next chapter is going to be, so we need to give flexibility within the products. And I think the nature of our equipment products really, really helps with that, because it is flexible and it is using induction technology, and even battery technology induction, which is the latest innovation from our Swiss manufacturer, Gastros, which means that you can use induction, but you don't necessarily have to have a power supply. It can be charged and moved around. So again, going back to sort of terraces and outside areas where you may not have power supplies, that's a type of technology, but it always comes from the base of using very energy efficient equipment. So I think that the technology is there, and it's just applying it to whatever the new world looks like.
Yeah, it's great. It's great to hear that there's that level of innovation out there, and obviously we just hope we can kind of get these events up again soon, and people will be going back into stadiums, and your teams will be busy again soon, John. We've kind of come to the end of today's session. We're just about on time, so thank you both for joining us today and for giving us some insight into your businesses, and the very best of luck moving forward. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.
Many thanks.